For more on the renegotiated trade deal, we welcome now one of his colleagues in the Senate, the Republican caucus. He is Senator Kevin Cramer of North Dakota, coming to us for Capitol Hill. So, Senator, welcome. Are you going to be one of those Republicans he may lose?
Oh, no, certainly not. USMCA is so important to North Dakota. You know, North Dakota's a lot like Iowa, except we actually border our northern neighbor, Canada. We do about $6 billion of exports a year, 88% of which are with Canada and Mexico. So that's, you know, Mexico, Canada are very, very important to North Dakota. And, you know, if perfection is the enemy of better, then we don't get very good deals. So, you know, nobody's king, and 535 people can't negotiate a perfect deal.
So if this is something that's good, if not perfect, good for Americans, and we hear that from both Republicans and Democrats, why not get it into effect right away? I mean, time's a waste in here. You get more benefits. And as you know, we have the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, saying, you know, we can't take it up until after we're done with the trial and impeachment. We're well into the new year, aren't we?
Well, that's right, but we do have this thing called the law that we have to deal with, and the calendar automatically kicks into impeachment once we receive the articles of impeachment. We might be able to take Christmas off, so that's a complicating factor. However, I mean, only speaking for me now, I would stay through this weekend, next weekend, up to Christmas, if that's what it took to get USMCA done. It's that important, in my view, to get that done, because it's got more value than even just the $6 billion from North Dakota. It's obviously important to American jobs, it's important to America's economy, but it's also added leverage in the other trade deals. This is, you know, trade deals have an escalating impact, a cascading value, if you will, as we're dealing around the world. I think it really strengthens the president's hand with China, as an example.
We're talking with Senator Kevin Cramer of North Dakota. So if this bill is that successful, that good, how fast can you get the impeachment trial done? And there's been talk about whether there'll be any witnesses called or not. What's your sense of that as one of the jurors, as it were, in that trial?
Yeah, so my sense of it is, and in my opinion, maybe more importantly, is that I don't think we ought to aim for a big, long trial. As much fun as it might be to call witnesses that provide exculpatory evidence and testimony for our president, I think the weakness of the Democrats' hand in the House, you know, evidence coming over, we could hear their evidence and we could hear the rebuttal by the president's lawyers, I think, and go right to a vote on both articles. I mean, the one is completely contrived, and I think that getting on with it, getting America on toward the election, you know, that's only going to be 10 months later, I think that has more value, frankly, than exonerating the president. And I also believe that, politically speaking, that the president's coming out ahead on this whole process as I thought it would in the first place. So, you know, I don't feel the need for a long trial. And I think there's a growing sentiment for that, actually.
Senator Cramer, let's turn to a somewhat different subject that sometimes can divide the White House from including Republicans up on the Hill, and that is possible sanctions against Turkey and Russia. Where do you stand on that?
So I tend to support sanctions on Turkey and Russia. I will never forget that when we first got here, I was still in the House at the time. The president, of course, was elected and sworn in, and we did those sanctions on Russia, and I immediately ended up on a trip to Kazakhstan to explain that it's not aimed at our allies in the region. I know that these things get complicated, but I think that with certain actors and certain circumstances, it's best to look out for America's national defense, and I think that sanctions are appropriate. But I also understand that you know, diplomacy is complicated, but I think we need to do something.
Yeah, you put it so well, Senator. Diplomacy is sometimes complicated. Are you concerned that, ironically, sanctions on Turkey may drive Turkey, an ally, more into the arms of the other possible subject of sanctions, that is Russia? Because certainly President Putin is courting President Erdogan.
There's no question about that, but you know, and Turkey's obviously an important NATO ally. They're the second largest army in NATO, but we also can't just look the other way when they commit egregious acts. And frankly, in terms of, you know, driving them into the arms of Vladimir Putin, as some people put it, to some degree, that ship's sort of sailed. And I think unless we add some strength to our relationship with Turkey, we're just letting them, we're facilitating that courtship rather than fighting back a little bit.
Senator Cramer, you're on the Armed Services Committee, I believe. Give us an assessment of the extent of the risk to U.S. national security of those S-400 Russian missiles being put into Turkey. We have heard that perhaps that really curtails, for example, our use of F-35s in the area.
Well, that's exactly right. So the S-400, of course, is the Russian anti-air defense system, and it could be used against our F-35s, and it's why we stopped the sale of F-35s to Turkey itself, because we don't need our aircraft being tested against or their defense system, the Russian defense system, tested against our top fighter jet. So that's part of that complicated relationship that we have with President Erdogan and Turkey. So the result, of course, is that a bunch of F-35s that were going to be sold to Turkey aren't being sold to Turkey. We hope now through the National Defense Authorization Act that we're able to utilize those jets in other places, including probably in our own Air Force.
And Senator, finally, if all that weren't complicated enough, the complications with Turkey go well back into the beginning of the 20th century with Armenians who were killed, and the question of whether it was genocide. There has been repeated attempts to declare it as genocide. That evidently has been stopped in part to make sure we don't drive Turkey away. Where are you on that issue?
Yeah, so last week I actually blocked the unanimous consent to that resolution on the floor. And the reason I did it was literally the day after President Trump got home from the NATO trip, where he visited with President Erdogan specifically about genocide, specifically about the S-400. I support the resolution. I will vote for the resolution the next time it comes up. But I just felt like we need to get a full reading from the president's negotiations with President Erdogan before we, the engines of Air Force One were barely cooled down when the resolution was brought to the floor for unanimous consent. I think that it's a resolution that needs to pass. I think it will soon, and it certainly will with my support.
That's very helpful. Thank you, sir. That's Senator Kevin Cramer, Republican of North Dakota, coming to us from Capitol Hill.